guys, how are you? I hope everybody's well. So I wanted to make a video to kind of break down some of the complicated concepts that were contained within the last two channels that I put out. They were even dense for me to get through, and after receiving it, I really didn't understand much of it, so I had to kind of reread it and reread it and reread it and see what I could grasp from it as well. Now just know a lot of the concepts contained within you may not need right now. You may not need the information putting forth in this video right now either. But simply by the act of listening, by hearing, know that your energetic field is kind of taking it into its filing cabinet per se. And when you do need it, if that time arises in the future, you will intuitively know exactly what to do with this information. So if it does kind of get your mind in a complete noodle wrapped up while listening, turn it off. It just may not be for you at all. But if you kind of understand, but not really understand, maybe keep watching. Because again, that's showing you some kind of resonance, and it may be that in a little bit of time into the future, you may need this. So I don't have notes, so I'm going to work off of this whiteboard, and I apologize for the scary person that I drew on there. It's funny because I had artistic ability for like 2 weeks where I was drawing all kinds of stuff. And then when the more technical kind of channels came through, that obviously ceased. So this is what we're working with right now. And I'm not so sure that the whiteboard's going to be of any real use to you, because I don't know how much you're going to be able to read off of it. But I will use it to kind of point to stuff if need be, and I'm going to use it for myself to kind of peek off of some of these notes, because I don't have any other notes around me. So moving forward, what the channels did bring forth was that there's a direct correlation between chakra frequency, personal experience, and kind of creational energy exploration. Okay, now what does that all mean? So from what I received, and from kind of what I got from the information that was given to me, chakra frequency correlates to the dimensional framework. Well, what do I mean when I say that? Well, we oftentimes hear about dimensions, right? But there's no real clear, and sometimes there is, but more often than not, there's no real clear explanation of what a dimension is. Like sometimes you'll have some kind of attributes that go along with like what you should be experiencing while you're resonating within that field and that sort of thing, but there's no real clarity concerning what a dimension actually means. So I'm going to try and clear some of that up for you. So when we move into a different dimensional experience, what happens is the resonance, the frequency in which creation is playing out an experience for us changes. So when you are resonating, well, not you, but when creation energy is resonating at, say, the root chakra resonance, which is 405 to 480 terahertz, what happens is, this is just basically the physical beginning stages of matter coming to be. Matter manifesting. That's 1D consciousness. Now at that time, you, I, all of us were co-creators in this, but we weren't individualized co-creators yet, okay? So we were still part of that source energy at that time. Source energy was just starting to kind of explore itself, so matter was just beginning to be sparked. So think of a straight line, something to that effect. And everything within that plane of awareness was resonating at 405 to 480 terahertz, okay? Moving on to then the sacral chakra, which would be your second chakra. That is 480 to 510 terahertz. Now within that frequency, there still wasn't individualized energy kind of manifesting at that point, meaning there wasn't an individualized you or an individualized me. It was still all part of that big consciousness, big source creation energy that was now beginning to explore itself beyond just the straight line. So it was getting creative with form at that time, getting creative with tangible sources. laying the blueprint for visual, conceptual, and experiential expansion. So that would be what we would label as 2D consciousness. Okay? Now moving up to 3D consciousness, because that's really where our individualized selves began coming onto the scene. So that would correlate with your solar plexus, which is 510 to 530 terahertz. And at this time, creation of depth by embodying the experience and to individually connect on a tangible scale started to arise. That is your 3D consciousness. That's where the earth has been for quite some time. We're in a really interesting time right now because you kind of have three-dimensional paradigms playing out at the same time. Now, granted, as many of you know, this 3D resonance isn't quite as large as what it once was. People are kind of gravitating out of that now, and not too much of that. I don't want to say that. There's a lot of it that still remains, but not as much as once had. Now, when I correlate these to dimensional experience, as we know, everything holds a resonance. Everything is made up of matter. Everything is made up of energy, super small subatomic particles. This pertains to thoughts as well. It pertains to interactions, and it pertains a lot to information. So when you are taking part in things that kind of make up this paradigm of 3D awareness, such as mainstream media, such as interactions with people who would like to argue about, say, politics or those types of things. Those interactions, that information will hold this resonance of 510 to 530 terahertz. Now, what happens is your body, your energetic being, is not immune to these frequencies that are coming in. So when you take up an overabundance of this frequency wave of the 510 to 530, that is going to be the mapping point to what makes up your base frequency. So if this is the information and the exchanges and the experience that you interact with most, you are going to resonate at that frequency, therefore giving you a 3D reality perspective. Okay, you see how it all kind of ties together now because we're working with the individual self. So that's where you would be radiating out from most of all. Now what happens is whichever kind of chakra that you primarily are working through frequency wise, you kind of have a direct line of communication that kind of taps in there, right? And this is where it comes to magnetics. So light frequency, which is what we are speaking about when we talk about the light body spectrum that's held within the chakras, really runs on an electromagnetic spectrum. So imagine this electromagnetic energy working as somewhat of an ether, holding the light frequency that rules experience to come in. So if we're radiating from that solar plexus level, right, you got a direct line of information, experience, interchanges, all of that stuff coming into that chakra. The electromagnetic field kinds of holds it stable there. And then you got that main line coming in. Now, can you deviate from that? Of course. Can you partake in stuff that's more 4D in nature? Absolutely. But your base frequency, okay, where that lies primarily is where that direct line of interchange and communication is going to be. So just know that it can alter and change, and you can absolutely move up, but you can absolutely move lower as well. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, before we move on to the higher kind of dimensional and chakra experiences, what I do want to put out is also, because I don't want to get you confused, can you still get disruptions within this chakra system? Of course you can. So you can get those things that aren't correlating exactly to experience, where you're just kind of having a disruption. Maybe you have an energetic imprint. Energy can't move as freely as it could if everything was running on the frequencies it needed to. You absolutely could, and that really doesn't have any bearing on what we're speaking of right now. But I will say this: what your body needs is these individualized frequencies that are contained within the chakras to run optimally. Okay, so it needs all of those individually exactly placed where they are to run as it should. In addition to that, it needs an abundance of electromagnetic energy to keep the communication going within the cellular matter. Okay, it's all like a finely oiled machine in many ways. So moving on now to heart chakra space. So this is where you have the resonance of 530 to 600 terahertz. Now within this area, creation of depth by embodying the experience and to individually connect on a tangible scale. That is what 4D is. So it's a little bit different than 3D in the fact that we are now learning to connect on a tangible scale. So no longer is it simply kind of the me first mentality of just worrying about experiencing on a tangible scale. Because on 3D, what 3D is a lot of times people, and I've said it before as well, that it's kind of like a me first mentality. And I guess that's not wrong. But more than that, it's simply to experience. Experience the good, experience the bad, experience happiness, sadness, fear, strength, all of it. That is the embodiment of 3D consciousness, is simply to experience on the tangible scale. Okay? When you move to 4D consciousness, this is about experiencing through connection. So, and you can even see that playing out now, right? So people are connecting more than they ever have before, but they're connecting, some people are connecting through love. Some people are connecting through fear, anger, hatred, all of those emotions. And it's important to remember as well, within each dimensional kind of scale, you'll always have two timelines playing simultaneously. Two main ones. You'll have outliers as well, but two main ones. Now within those, you're going to have one that's kind of vibrating at the higher vibrational manifestation of that dimensional experience. And then you're going to have one that's vibrating at a lower vibrational manifestation of that dimensional experience. So going back to 4D consciousness, if we are learning how to connect in tangible form, to do so in a higher vibrational manifestation of the concept, well, that will be done by love, connecting through hope, all of those concepts. If you're doing it on the lower vibrational manifestation of that, well, that would be connecting through fear, anger, hatred, disgust, those types of concepts, okay? But both of those, it's important to note, both of those still resonate within that 530 to 600 terahertz, okay? So everything contained within that experience is still going to be resonating at that frequency, but there are ranges within the frequency, okay? So some is lower. So maybe for those that are vibrating within that anger, fear kind of mindset, they're down a little bit more towards the 530, and those that are coming together from love, hope, joy, they're resonating a little bit more up at that 600, okay? So now moving on, there's a lesser known spot, and this has been coming to me over the past few months, but more so directly with this last channel. And it's a heart center. So, you know, the heart chakra's right here. Imagine a place like right here, in between that heart chakra and the throat chakra. That's heart center. And that resonates between 600 to 620. And really all that does is it's a holding space to allow for deeper integration of conceptual resonance. So it's a big jump. It's a super big jump to get from 3D to 5D, okay? Super huge jump. That offers you a place to kind of, wow, take everything in before you can quite make it up to that 5D consciousness, okay? There's a lot. And to make it into 5D, we got to release a lot, Okay, so any baggage that you're holding on to from 3D, so anything that kind of gives you feelings, again, of fear, anger, hatred, disgust, any of that stuff, you're not going to be able to hold on to that when you get into 5D. It's just not going to vibrationally work. So there's going to be two options. You're either not going to head there, and that's okay too. Not everybody's sole choice is to go to 5D. I think sometimes we forget this, but if your track is to be on 5D, I can assure you, one way or another, you will be releasing all of that that doesn't serve that dimensional experience. It may start popping out during dreams. It may start popping out. You may get the urge to do shadow work. Nobody really wants to do shadow work, though. You have a few people that do, but for the most part, nobody wants to do shadow work. But I promise you, if you don't actively do the shadow work, a lot of the stuff that doesn't resonate with you getting up into those higher vibrations, it's going to come out during sleep. We need to think of ourselves as a pressure cooker, okay? And there's a lot that we can kind of jam in there. But at some point, we got to release that steam, okay? And during sleep, that's where we're able to kind of release the steam. So if you've noticed super vivid dreams lately, or the inability to fall asleep, because you just have all these overwhelming thoughts, and maybe you're thinking about what you did when you were 7 years old, and what happened in high school, and what you feel bad about, know that if that's happening, it's okay. It's a healthy thing. Allow all that stuff to come out, because you're going to feel a lot better as a result. So moving on now. We're moving on to the resonance of the throat chakra. So within the throat chakra, what happens is this is going to resonate between 620 to 680 terahertz. And this is the physicality, that's a big word, of the experience becomes less concrete, and the reality perception becomes more malleable, fluid, and elastic. So basically what that means is that we're knowing, we're feeling, we're kind of working through things where we can not only intuitively, but kind of tinker with the way things unfold. You may notice at this time as well, time gets a little screwy. So you may go through episodes where time kind of speeds up a little bit, or time seems to slow down. You may also have these time loops of sorts where you'll envision something to happen and then it does, or you felt like something happened and then you find out it didn't, but then it does. So all of that stuff comes into play when things start resonating at this 620 to 680. And that's on the creation level side of it. Time is an illusion. Time is not linear as we perceive. It's a cyclical type of thing. And the laws of time as we perceived it in 3D experience no longer have as much stability when we start getting into these higher vibrations. So you may notice that happening within 4D awareness when you get up, 5D awareness when you get up a little bit higher. Now, another thing as well, when you start getting into this range of 620 to 680, you're going to notice your intuition increases. You're going to notice coincidences are happening all the time. Pay attention to those. If you want those kind of experiences to keep coming for you, remember, you have to bring into your awareness the things that resonate at this frequency. So no longer can you partake really in the things of the 3D experience if you want to maintain this up here. If you partake in the news, if you partake in conversations with individuals that bring about feelings of fear, anger, hatred, disgust, you're going to start bringing in that lower frequency again. That's going to have an effect on your base frequency. So if the majority of you is made up within this kind of frequency cluster of the 620 to 680, but you're taking in 510 to 530, it's going to fluctuate. Okay, and then what happens is if it doesn't fluctuate that much, it's going to create something called an energetic imprint. And what basically that is it's just a misaligning of frequency. You can go in there and kind of actively just work it out with your own intention, but it's something that you really don't need to experience because you feel amazing when you're up here. So if you can kind of maintain this frequency, see if you can do it, cut all that stuff out that really doesn't work for you. I also want to mention as well that while radiating up in this throat chakra kind of resonance, there's going to be a lot of people putting out information right now, and they have it labeled as 5D information. And I put this out so much, and I'm sorry if you've heard me repeat it like 95 times, but I think it's an important concept for us to know. Just know that any information that's 5D, true 5D in nature, is not going to bring you feelings of fear, anxiety, frustration, hatred, or disgust. Okay? So what really that is that's 4D truth warrior stuff. Okay? So you do have a group of people right now that are actively kind of uncovering all of the things that they feel were negative. And negative is one of those tricky words because nothing is really negative or positive. It's all neutral in nature. We want to label things as either negative or positive. All you simply have is lower vibrational and higher vibrational. That's it. So lower vibrational manifestations of the third dimensional construct is what a lot of these 4D truth warriors now are trying to uncover for everybody, but that's very difficult work. And you shouldn't stay there longer than what you need because you're going to become very tired as a result. So if you are partaking in that information and it is kind of given to you as 5D information, know that that is not 5D information. Okay, that is not going to raise you to 5D. What that's going to do is kind of make it a little bit more difficult for you to get up there because it's 4D information. Yes, it's serving a purpose. Yes, it's going to bring people together that are coming out of 3D into 4, but it's not needed for you right now. You're beyond it, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind and limit as much as you can what you take in of that information. So now moving on to third eye, which would be 6-dimensional realization. I just kind of want to touch upon these. Not many of us are going to be experiencing this right now, but I do just want to touch upon it slightly because you know, for months, I basically had that 5D was kind of tip top. That's all anybody was really going to be able to get to. But as of late, I'm getting that people may get a toe in to 6, but then you're going to come back down. We can't hold resonance in 6, not fully. It's just way too high for the denseness of the 3D that remains. But I do want to go over it with you. So when you get into that resonance of 680 to 790, that's the final stages in which the physical embodiment of experience occurs. The ability to leave form and exist in many ways outside of form. But the ability to leave form is there. You have a direct connection to your third eye, and that's constantly maintained. So what do I mean by that? So I mean astral travel, psychic meetings, that sort of stuff. That's where that information kind of comes in, along with co-creation. So within this 5th and 6th chakra, there's going to be a lot of co-creating going on. So all of you guys that are within those resonances, it's your time to shine. So you guys are going to be the ones kind of co-creating, working, getting the new future experience for humanity into play. Okay, that's where you guys are coming in, right? And that's a super important job. And by this time, those 4D truth warriors need a break. So this is where all of you are going to step up. And then moving on to the crown chakra, and that's ability to traverse in pure love and light, pure consciousness, exploring different initial conditions across all possible worlds. So that again is more creation experience where you're pure love and light at that point. You no longer are in physical embodiment, and you're just kind of out there kind of as source, but still individualized. See, it's a weird kind of step. So you're still an individualized energy. Okay, so it's not back to how it was in the beginning or how it will be higher up in the dimensional scale, but you're not with form. So I hope that makes sense to you. So you're not in physical form, but you still are an individualized energy, part of the whole, but not completely embodied by it. but you will have the ability at that point to kind of traverse along energy, time, and dimension, and explore creating new worlds. That would be within that level of consciousness. Let me see here. Oh, and it's important to also talk about too. There are cycles within kind of awareness and existence. We live in a cycled experience. So not only do we have cycles that play out with creation and experience, but we have cycles that play out in our own lives as well. You're going to have external cycles that play out with individuals. So maybe you notice a certain pattern playing out within your life with the people that you meet. Okay, but then in addition to that, you have cycles that you internally kind of play out as well. So the really interesting thing about this is that it always kind of goes back to showing us how everything within our existence and our awareness is fractalized. So what does that mean? Well, if you've ever looked at a snowflake, and yes, of course, we've all looked at a snowflake, unless you live in like some beautiful place where you don't get snow, but most of us know what a snowflake looks like. But here's the thing, when you magnify onto that snowflake a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, you'll see a same pattern kind of replaying out within that snowflake. That happens with experience and existence as well. So when we see things playing out on the cosmic scale, it also kind of tumbles down and plays out on the smaller scales as well. One example of this is, say, if we look into the night sky and you see all the stars in the sky, right? And then we go ahead and say take a magic marker and connect all those lines, right? You're going to see that also visually play out within the roots of a tree. You're going to see that within the veins, within the human body. Everything is fractal. Everything is cycles. It runs on cycles. So know that what we're going through right now, this is not new. This has been done before in Earth's history, and many of us have been there at that time when that did occur. And see, here's the wacky thing, and I don't want to get your head twisted and noodle too much, but it's happening simultaneously to now. So Earth experience goes on cycles, okay? So imagine kind of the Mayan calendar, right? With those big cycles that occurred, right? Experience plays out on those cycles as well, but those cycles, the main cycles, run simultaneously. So as we're kind of playing out here, we're also playing out in those other cycles. So it's kind of like parallel self, right? And that'll happen at other times in incarnation, but this is a big one. And at the same time, this ascension process is kind of going on in this now, in this experience, it's happening in other cycled expressions as well. I hope I didn't throw everything over the top with that last statement, but I think that's pretty much it. So I hope that I clarified some for you. I'm not sure if I made it more complicated for you to understand or kind of cleared some of it up. I do really feel though that you should read those channels if you haven't. Like I said, please let me know and I'll post them for you because they are a whole lot more detailed than what this like little presentation was. But the idea that I do want to get across from you, everything is cyclical. So experience is cyclical in nature. Everything is fractal. So everything is just a fractal of the larger expression of what it's showing. In addition to that, frequency not only correlates to the individualized chakras, but it correlates to individualized experience, and it also correlates to creational kind of parameters that are put upon experience. So it's the defining factors for the dimensional platforms run off of light frequency. It's very different. When you look at some of these numbers correlating to these chakras that I've been given, you might say, well, that doesn't exactly correlate to the frequencies I see that you can use for these chakras. And that's true. The reasoning behind that is because the frequencies that I was given relate directly to light. So it's light frequency. Light doesn't really need a medium to manifest. So light just simply is. Light is the starting point on which everything can occur. Light is the starting point on which we have dimensional play. Light is the starting point upon which your body works on. And light is the starting point upon which you experience an individual level. Okay? That is what lays the groundwork for everything, is the frequency contained within the light spectrum. Also important to remember, this light spectrum runs within electromagnetic kind of ether. Okay? So it's one and the same. They run together. In addition to that, sound, which are the frequencies that would be associated with these chakras to help strengthen them and get them kind of moving in the way they need to. Sound is very important as well, because we can use sound as a tool to manipulate the light-based energy. We can use sound to spark in our co-creating abilities, spark creational experience. So really see if you can kind of navigate through experience and get playful with sound and how it relates to light. Possibly try doing a few meditations where you're working with sound, and you can have those tailored to certain chakras as well. But see if you can even do just a simple meditation of not only connecting the chakras on a color spectrum, but imagine actually bringing in the frequency associated with that color. So kind of grabbing the frequency as opposed to just grabbing the color. And then see if you can kind of top that with using sound therapy as well. Now, in addition, I just want to kind of say that if anybody does have any insights that they pulled from this, please feel free to comment with that. I would love to hear your feedback. This is how we learn and grow. Everybody has a different perspective. So I'm going to see things from one perspective. Somebody else is going to see things through a different. They may be similar, of course, but none of them are going to be exactly the same. So if there's a different kind of aspect you pulled from any of this information or from either one of the channels, please feel free to comment. Again, that's how we learn and grow. When we get to the point where we think we know everything, that's where things get stagnant. So I hope you have a great day. Much love to all of you. And yeah, be well, guys. Take care.